Hi gang, welcome back. How are we all this fine day? I have no opener for this, so it literally the first 30 seconds are just unbearably awkward of me making small talk with myself. So if anyone has an idea of something that I can open with, I'd really appreciate it. Until then, we're going to go straight in on why the fuck we are not designed for a 24-hour news cycle. And something that I personally really struggle with. So I have a confession to make. I am completely, utterly, unbearably addicted to my phone. I am also hyper aware of this. So I will throw it out the window and I will not use it for weeks at a time. And then I will try to manage my relationship specifically with TikTok. If you know me in real life, no you don't. And I'll download certain apps back onto my phone and I'll tell myself that I'll put the digital wellbeing blockers on every 10 minutes. So I'll only spend 10-15 minutes on certain apps every day. And before I know it, I've blown through them all and spent 2 hours of my day scrolling. And I don't know where that time has gone. And I'm really pissed off with myself for doing it. So then I delete it all again because I refuse to do this. And then I use it on my laptop. So if anyone knows anything that can help with that, would really appreciate it. But the other week, at this time of recording, it's all gone very, very quiet, which I think is suspect in and of itself, but this isn't a conspiracy theory podcast, so we won't go there. That I had a complete spiral over the hantavirus. I was absolutely terrified. I'm not going to lie to you. I was glued to my phone, checking what was going on, where they were, where the ship was, who was coming and going. I was on tenterhooks. It was absolutely sat. I planned an entire lockdown before breakfast, not gonna lie. And if you've ever doom scrolled yourself into a panic about something that hasn't happened yet, welcome, you are absolutely in the right place and qualified to be my friend already. So today we are going to talk about why that wasn't beneficial, why that wasn't helpful, and why our bodies literally cannot cope with the modern news cycle and what's happening biologically when we do doom scroll. So the concept is that, and I'm going to start with this fact because I think this is incredible. If you were to sit down now and read a newspaper cover to cover, which, I mean, I've not seen a newspaper in years, but that's another issue. If you were to sit down and read a newspaper now, you would have consumed more information in that than someone would have had in their entire lives a couple of 100 years ago. Just sit with that for a single second. One newspaper is more information than someone had in their entire lives. I know. So, 99% of human history, the news that reached you was news that came into your village. It was someone within walking distance, or at the very most, it was a traveller that was passing through about once a month. Thus, your nervous system evolved to handle threats that were local, immediate, and most importantly, resolvable. Now, you wake up to genocides, pandemics, climate collapse, political chaos, and celebrity divorce, I bet before you've even made a coffee. Your brain did not evolve for this. None of our brains have evolved for this, and we're trying to emotionally process the suffering of the entire fucking planet in real time and on a device the size of our hand that we cannot seem to put down. My parents even talk about the news, back in the day, the telly turned off. The news was on once or twice a day, beginning and end of the day. You read the paper, you moved on. You watched the headlines, and you moved on. And now, it is continuous. The 24-hour news cycle has so much to answer for. There is no end, there's no point at which that you can say, okay, enough is enough, I am caught up. Not even enough is enough, but there's no point at which that you can sit there and say, I'm caught up, I know what's going on, because everything is changing constantly. There's a helicopter going overhead, I'm really sorry if you can hear it. And you know, something terrifying that's actually even worse is that your algorithm will specifically serve you things that make you anxious, because anxiety drives up engagement, which increases their ad revenue. It pays them to make you anxious. They profit off your discomfort. And I think we all know when I'm talking about we know who they are. But that's why we can't look away. There is a whole system backed behind profiting and leveraging your discomfort, which is just nuts. So, headline stress disorder is a real thing. The term was coined by Stephen Stosny. I'm going to have so many pissed off psychologists in my DMs at some point. Hopefully I need to learn to pronounce their names by that point. But the term was coined by Stephen Stosny around 2017. And studies showed that during COVID, people who consumed news had significantly higher rates of anxiety, depression, and PTSD. Independent of whether they were affected by anything that was going on or not. A translation, you didn't need to live through any of these stressful events to be stressed out by them. Just watching is enough to stress you out. And I really dislike the word trauma and the word traumatized. But that is essentially, you did not need to be traumatized in order to be traumatized, essentially. And I was definitely one of those people. I would sit and watch the news. I vividly remember I would sit and watch the news every day, and I'd sit and wait for the numbers as well, which was really, really, really bleak. And the storming of the Capitol, do you remember that? When under Trump, we'll keep our opinions to ourselves about that. But I viscerally remember sitting there and crying because I was just so overwhelmed by everything that was going on. And realistically, I would never have known about it. But because of the news, it's just nuts, isn't it? It's absolutely nuts. But vicarious trauma is now something that it's a term that's now being used by therapists, journalists, and first responders. And unfortunately now it applies to everyone with a smartphone and a Twitter feed, because Jesus Christ, some of the things you can see on Twitter are horrific. But your brain cannot fully distinguish between something that's happening to you and something that's happening around you. Again, we've spoken about that caveman brain trying to protect you. If it feels the threat, it will act to protect you. It is what you are designed to do. So then we need to talk about cortisol. I know that that's a massive buzzword in the health and wellness space. I know that word is massive in the health and wellness space at the minute, but the studies have shown that your cortisol literally spikes whenever you scroll. And chronic low-level cortisol has an awful effect on your body. Inflammation, chronic sleep disorders, immune issues, and mood issues. No wonder Gen Z are struggling. We are struggling so much with mental health. The problem is literally the world we are living in. And the really bleak takeaway from this is that you are not only physically affected by the news. And the really bleak takeaway of this, I'm afraid, is that you are physically damaged by the news. Actually, not metaphorically. The stress that you are constantly putting yourself under, because as we've established, if you only to watch nice news, I'm sure you'd be fine, but they're not showing you that. They don't show you the nice news. You have to go out of your way to find nice news. If you ask for the headlines, they're going to be war, financial crisis, climate change. They don't promote anything positive, especially not on TikTok. Again, as we've spoken, there's an entire team that sit very high up that profit off your anxiety, that profit off your discomfort, because you'll share that shit. You'll send it to your friends, you'll talk about it because it makes you anxious. And as human beings living in community, problem shared, problem halved, we like to feel safe within our communities. You will share that shit and they will profit off it. So let's have a little fuck the man moment and stop getting upset by the news, which is probably so much easier said than done, but a girl can dream. So we're going to wrap up with, because that was a little bit dark and I am sorry for that, but there's a reason that you feel exhausted and you haven't done anything. You've been running from the saber-toothed tiger all morning. Your body just doesn't know that you're on Instagram. Which is so crap. It's so crap because there's so much. And I'll be the first to say, I spend a lot of time on my phone. I work a lot from my phone. I run multiple social media accounts for this, for my business, my personal account, my photography account. I spend a lot of time on social media. But I can see the impact it's having, not only on me, but my friends, my brother, and the generation that are coming in behind us. And I don't have any answers to that at the moment. I know there's a lot of push at the minute, and there's actually a lot of talk in the news at the moment that social media is bad and it needs to be banned for under 16s. And there's a really, really interesting debate that is being had there. I've listened to a couple of podcasts where some people are advocating that it needs to be moderated, some people are advocating it needs to be banned, and some people are advocating that we just need to introduce it to children in a beneficial way, the same way that we introduce, other things that are banned for under 18s, banned in general, that kind of thing. So there are no answers on that at the minute, but I'll keep you posted because I think that's a really interesting conversation. But the takeaways, because this has been a little bit depressing. So practical tips that we can do today is don't check your phone first thing in the morning. And I'm absolutely talking to myself when I say this. I've blocked most of the social media apps on my phone because I was realizing that they were taking me to quite a dark place, bursting in the fucking morning. But I do still check the news. So we need to stop that, and we need to take my alarm sound to not be the headlines. Don't check your phone first thing in the morning. Your nervous system needs a buffer before you process what you're about to process. The other one that I quite like is pick a news window. Like when you check your emails, check them once in the morning, then put it away. Which again, I do struggle with because, if there's a meteor crashing towards Earth and we're all going to die in the next 20 minutes, I'd quite like to know. But there's not much I can do about it anyway. So I really struggle with that. My dad's really funny because he, and my mum actually, they're very laid back people, but they're very like, well, if you can't do anything about it, don't worry about it. And I would love to live in their brain for half an hour to just see what that's like. Distinguish between being informed and inundated. And that was a really big one for me. You can be one without the other. You can be informed and you can know what's going on without being absolutely hounded and flooded with information that isn't beneficial to you, to your heart, soul, and mind. Unfollow accounts that exist purely to make you angry. Rage bait accounts, anything that promotes those people with those ideas, unfollow them, because you don't need to wind yourself up. The world's going to piss you off enough. You don't need to piss yourself off. Again, that one's coming straight back to me. And then the big one is notice the difference between this is information that I can act on and this is suffering that I'm being made to witness for no reason. And that's really heavy, and I do take that with a pinch of salt because we are in such a place of privilege that we can just turn things off and take a step back when it gets too much for us. And there are literally millions of people that are living situations that they can't turn off or get away from. And I need to figure out a way to reconcile the two. But I think just being made aware of what you can and can't control and trying to make peace with what you can't control and just doing a little bit, your little bit, would make us all feel a little bit better. So to reframe this as well, not knowing every awful thing in real time is not that you don't care. It's not that you don't care. You're not morally obligated to absorb the entire planet's plane in real life. You don't have to feel that. And your capacity to help anyone, including yourself, depends on you not being a fried husk of a person. Because you can't pour from an empty cup. You cannot help pragmatically if you are frazzled and overwhelmed and feeling all the feelings all the time coming from that. And I always find as well, you can never make decisions coming from a place of reaction, a place of stress. It isn't beneficial at all. Being informed is a civic duty. Being constantly inundated is self-harm with extra steps. You don't need to be accessible, contactable, and plugged in 24/7. There's something really liberating and really freeing about taking a step back. And again, it doesn't mean that you don't care. It doesn't mean that you're not passionate about this. And it doesn't mean that you don't want to help. It just means that you acknowledge that you can't be open to it all the time. It will absolutely fry your brain, quite literally fry your brain, as we've been speaking about. So again, that felt a little bit bleak, but hopefully some practical steps that you can take away. And once we feel a little bit more recharged, we can go and stick it to the man. But yeah, don't let them make you anxious first thing in the morning, because we're better than that, team. We're better than that. Right. I'm going to leave you there. Yeah, I'll see you soon.